Hey everybody, okay, this is the character classes part 2 for the regular expressions in Google Sheets. Okay, we're going to talk about, I know in the previous one we spoke about, alphanumeric, alpha, and digit, as well as a couple of others, basics. And I did say that there were 10. There are 10, but I'm going to actually talk about 3. So let me go ahead and discuss the 3 I'm going to talk about. There is this one. Hold on a second. There is the space. Yes. Okay, space. Character class. And this one is about removing white space. And those are like the extra spaces that you have within your strings that you don't really need, that you want to get rid of in one fell swoop. Okay. Then we have the punct. Oops. Okay, this one is where we actually, you're counting the punctuation marks. So if you're looking for basically anything that is not a letter, upper or lowercase, and a number. So we'll go over how that works with these examples right here. But basically, you want to take a look and see. Okay, maybe you're again trying to figure out that you have a certain sentence or a certain string, and you don't want any special characters in them. As I mentioned in previous videos, passwords, or even keywords, but passwords are definitely a place where that could be applicable if you want to create a simple password, but you don't want to include anything other than alphanumeric characters. Then this is where that could work. That could work for you. So it's basically about counting punctuations. Okay, and then we have word. Now, with Word, you're actually looking at if something has alphabet or alphanumeric characters. And, the best place that this could be applicable would be in email validation, or even in URL validation to an extent, but mostly email validation. And if Word looks a little familiar, it's because it is actually one of the shorthand classes that I've spoken about in a previous video, and I'll put that link up here. But basically, you want to look at the word. You want to see if the word is valid or invalid, and we'll go through an example of that in a moment. Now, I did mention that there are a couple of others. There's actually print. And there is graph. Now, both of these I have not used. When you use them, when you look at them, they're actually for ASCII. They really have an emphasis on non-printable characters. And when you think of non-printable characters, I actually think of ASCII characters, which I've rarely ever used. So if you're doing any kind of programming where you're dealing with non-printable characters, or you're dealing with something like, say, I don't know, barcode characters, then you would actually need to use these. From what I've read, but as I've said, I've only ever dealt with printable characters. And if you have ever dealt with non-printable characters or dealt with these character classes, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you've used it. Okay, so let's get back to these examples. Alright, so the first one we're going to take a look at, and see the punctuation. Now remember from the previous character classes video, when you're dealing with these terms, these class terms, you have to encase them in outside brackets. So you're going to be double bracketing them basically. But think of it this way, that the bracket colon term is actually, it's like you're putting in an alphabet. So you would need to put that alphabet in an encasement for it to work. That's, I guess, the best way to look at it. So in this case, we're going to take a look and see if there are any special characters found. If there are no special characters found, of course, this was going to be true. But as you can see, it's encased within an if statement so that when you have anything, it's like an error handling. So if you have it coming up with a false, then you know what to do. Whether it's true, you know what to do. You also want to make sure that whatever you do within Google Sheets, even if it's regular expressions, you want to do as much error handling as possible, because there's nothing as disconcerting as seeing like an NA or an error or a reference error in there. In all of that data, it really kind of draws your attention. You're sitting there wondering what happened. So it helps you to better clean the data. Keep your data clean. All right, so go ahead and let's get this equal, so you can see that there's special characters found, which is true because I have a comma, I have question, I have a quotation marks and all that, and I have a $sign. But let's break down what this, let's take a look at this. Simple enough. You're just basically matching what's there, and you're using that punctuation character class, and then you're basically doing what to do if you find it, so if it's true, and what to do if it is not true. So let's go ahead and just, as an example, let me get rid of let's see what happens when I take up $20. I think I've gotten all of them. No special characters found. So you also want to note that white space is not a special character. Okay. All right. So the next one is what we're basically looking for. In this case, we're using the space. We want to check out how much white space is in a string. And in this case, we want to take a look at if there's any extra white space at the beginning and at the end. And because we're using REGEX replace, we're going to say, okay, what are we going to do about it? So if there is any white space at the beginning, in this case, the caret means at the beginning. Remember, the caret is outside of the square bracket, so you're talking about at the beginning. And remember, we have the plus sign is one or more. So if there is white space, if there are two errors or two in this case, let me just back up and explain what white space means. White space is more than just an extra space. It could be a line break. It could be an extra, a paragraph break or anything like that. So if there is anything extra of that case that we find at the beginning and at the end, right here, if you find one or more at the end, then we actually just put in an equal sign in this case. And the trim function, I'll go over that, but trim is it's a fun function. I actually have used trim, length, mid, left, right, whenever I was trying to get anything out before I got a little bit of a handle on regular expressions. That's how I'd use like left, then take a look at the length, and then move a certain piece. And it was very handy, but of course it can become a problem when you don't know how many characters you need to move. But trim, len, right, left, mid are incredibly useful functions within within Google, and I'll go through those in subsequent videos. So in this case, we're just trust me on this, we're going to trim it, and then we go ahead and let's take a look at what the result is. Great. So what we're saying here is that we found a space before, which we can tell, and there's actually a space after the exclamation point. Now, of course, you can do whatever it is you want with this. You can actually just put in a blank space. You can, do whatever you want with it, but at least you have a foundation to understand how to build this argument to look for that white space. Okay, and finally, we're going to take a look at validating an email address. Now, of course, in some cases you might recognize this. There's sometimes on certain platforms, they tell you not to include your email address, and some people try to game the system by putting this in. And And, you know, of course, a lot of it works. But this is if you're trying to get information from somebody and they don't necessarily want to give you their address and they put it in this form, then you can say, okay, that's not a valid address, try again, or it is valid address, continue. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. This one obviously is going to come out to be invalid. Okay. So then what we can do is that, you know, if the person has been prompted that this is an invalid address and they can't move forward until they have corrected it, when they go ahead and do that, it now becomes valid. Now again, let's break down this argument. So we're going to match. This is the actual text that we're going to take a look at. Now we're going to go through and check out the word at the beginning before the ampersand. And then we're going to take out the words after the ampersand. Remember, there are two things you need to take a look at here. This one right here is, remember, plus is one or more. But then you have the literal character. Since we're dealing with, we want the actual dot, we put in this backslash before the period to let Google Sheets know that we are looking for the actual character, the dot, and not the special function dot. And then we go ahead and we put in the word, and of course we go from there. Now, if this looks a little familiar, it is because the word can also be represented like this. Yeah, this is the backslash W is a shorthand for this character class, and there are actually a few of those. And again, I'll put that link in the description as well, and you can take a look at that video and play around with the shortcuts. But at least you have the option of whether you want to use the shortcut or the long version, whichever is more comfortable for you. There's no right or wrong answer on that one, and it's how you use the function. So again, we have the space, which gets rid of the white space, or at least highlights the white space and gives you the option of what to do with it. Punctuation, which looks for punctuation marks, anything that is not 0 through 9, upper and lowercase letters. And then you have the actual word. The word function that helps you to take a look at alphanumeric characters. Well, that's it, and you know, of course, play around with this and let me know if you've ever used, again, print or graph in your regular expression journey, and let me know how it goes and what you guys did. If anything, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.